Hi there, I'm Jennifer McGuire and I'm creating this video for Two Peas in a Bucket courtesy of Hero Arts. In this video I'm going to show you how to use some of the new products from Hero Arts and Sizzix. They've branded some products together and I use them to create this holiday card. So I'm going to show you how to do the stamping and embossing and the stamping and die cutting. So first we're going to start out with the stamp and embossing folder. So Hero Arts and Sizzix sell the stamp, as you see here, this cling stamp, and the embossing folder together in the same package. And they work really well together and are very easy to use together. And I'll show you how in this video. If you've never used an embossing folder before, this is a great way to see how they can work. So I'm just going to ink up this stamp with Versamark ink, just a sticky clear ink so that I can heat emboss it. And I'm just going to lay my cling stamp on the table and press my paper onto it. Now you could put it on an acrylic block to stamp it, but I find it easier to leave it laying on the table. So now I'm going to take some white embossing powder and shake it onto my image. Now you could just stamp this image with regular ink, but I wanted to have that bright white up against the soft blue background. Now you can use any die cut machine for this, but I prefer the Vagabond or the Big Shot from Sizzix. And I have my new platform here with the solo shim on it, and I take my piece and I put it into the embossing folder. The Sizzix word is facing up, and I'm just slide it in, and you'll see how easy it is to line up the stamped pattern with the pattern on the embossing folder. Very quick and easy. So I put it between my two clear plates into my Big Shot, and I'm going to run it through, and I'll run it through one way, and I just love to run it back through the other way just to get a really good impression. You really don't have to do that. But you could do this on any die cut machine. Again, I recommend the Vagabond or the Big Shot by far. So there you have the great embossed pattern that really just highlights that stamping just perfectly. Now to kind of make these open trees pop a little bit, I took a light color of a Copic marker and I'm just adding some shading into it, right into the stamped image. Just a little something to kind of make them pop a bit. And here's a closer look at what that embossed and stamped background looks like. It's really cool how they line up so perfectly. Now next we're going to look at the Hero Arts and Sizzix stamp and dies. So this is what the package comes like. You have all the stamps on the bottom, all cling stamps, and all of the dies on the top. Now these dies are really unique in that they are really easy for you to stamp first and then die cut, which I'll show you in a moment. Now there are actually more dies than there are images here, more stamped images. So there are many options that you can do with these die cuts. So I'm just going to take the two larger trees and the two tree stamps, and I'm going to add this to the card. So I'm going to stamp these trees with the Hero Arts Grass Chalk ink. Any green ink would work for this. And I'm going to use my stamp press. You could use an acrylic block if you don't have a stamp press, to stamp this onto some green paper. And this is actually from the Basic Gray Nordic Holiday 6x6 pad. It's got some fun textury color to the green, so it's a little more interesting than just plain green cardstock. Now I'm back to my Big Shot here, and to do these thin dies you need the Solo Thin Die adapter. You just add this in. Now if you have the old universal plate where it has the flip tabs, you can use that too, or you can use any of the plates with other machines also. Now here's a closer look at the die. There's a thin cutting blade is right on the inside edge of the die. So you line up the inside edge of the die with the outside edge of the stamped image, and it'll give you a perfect cut every time, perfectly lined up. These are the only dies that actually have the cutting edge right on the inside edge. So I put a little sticky note there to hold it in place so it doesn't shift. You really don't have to do this, but I find it easier. You could use masking tape too. So I've held it in place with that Post-it. I'm going to take that off and just pop my die cut image out. Now for the trees, this would have been pretty simple to cut, but for some intricate designs, those dies and stamps are great to have together. Now I'm just using a white pen to kind of add some highlights to the stamped image, just to kind of make them grab your attention a little bit more. Now with white pens, I find that the slower you write with them, the better they transfer the ink to the paper. So there's a closer look at those trees. Now I wanted to show you how I did the snow on the bottom. I cut 3 white cardstock strips, and I'm just going to tear each of them. Now you can notice I'm not doing any kind of planning with how I tear these. I'm just tearing them randomly, and I'll show you in a moment why you don't have to plan this out. But this will give me the effect of some kind of snow-covered hills in the bottom of the card. So what I do is I take the biggest one and I apply adhesive along the bottom edge of it, and then I add it to my card wherever I want it. I end up moving it later, but that's okay. I'm using an adhesive that allows me to move things. And now I'm going to take the next one and put adhesive on the back of it. And I'm just going to tuck that under the other strip. And I can do this at an angle if I want to get the hills lined up just right. It really doesn't matter because I'm going to cut the edges off. That's the joy of making the paper longer than the card, because I can kind of rotate them a little bit. So now I'm with the last one. I'm going to tuck that under there. And when I'm happy with how they all are, I'm going to press them together. You can see I'm kind of shifting them here on the card. I shift it a few times before I get it where I want it. And once I'm happy with it, I flip the card over and use my scissors to cut right off the edge. It's easier to flip the card over to see where the edge of the card is. So I'm just going to cut those off. And now I have the perfect snow hills. Now to make those layers kind of stand out from each other, I use my fingernails to kind of pull the edges of the torn hills up. So you can see I'm just kind of really quickly just kind of rubbing those torn edges up, and it gives some great texture, and that little bit of dimension gives some shading, which is fun too. And if you wanted to, you could put some glitter or stickles on those edges also. So now I have my trees done, and I'm going to add them to the card. I'm using foam adhesive. I really like adding things with foam adhesive because it gives great look of dimension, especially with that embossed background. It just kind of adds to all the texture here. So after I've added all of my trees, I decided I wanted to have a brown trunk on my trees, so I'm just going to go and snip all those off. And I've got a piece of brown cardstock here that I'm going to add for the trunks. Another joy of using an adhesive that will let you move things around, as you can see, I'm just going to peel up these layers and tuck the trunks behind them. So now I have even more dimension to my card because those are glued flat to the card. So now I have all my trunks down. Now the last thing I wanted to do to kind of finish this card off is add some gems to the tree. And I was going to do red, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I'm using these earth tone mixed accents from Hero Arts. It's some gems and some pearls in different colors and sizes. I'm just going to add a few to the tree. Just adds a little bit of interest, but doesn't take away from the card itself. So there's a closer look at the final card. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Hero Arts and Sizzix embossing folders, stamps, and die cuts. If you have any questions, visit 2peasinabucket.com or Hero Arts. Thanks for watching.